it's not a crime. It's just the police are like, oh, well, you said something that's hurtful. And it's like, well, is it a crime? Well, no, it's not a crime. So we're not arresting you for a crime. We're charging you or arresting you for a non-crime hate incident.
It is not a crime. That's the truth of the matter. But if this story goes viral and everybody in the UK is thinking maybe there is a SWAT team down the road, it might work.
All right, guys. I'm sure you've seen what's been happening over in England and the UK and the rise in crime. So I want to play out a little scenario here so that you guys can get a picture of how serious they're taking the increase in crime over there. So let's talk about law and order. So imagine the quiet suburbs of Surrey, England, a sinister pattern is emerging. Okay, police intelligence have warned of a surge in predatory behavior. Women are afraid to walk on the streets. Authorities have prepared a major crackdown on sexual assault. They mobilized special units. They have undercover agents deployed, and a month-long operation was underway to finally bring these men to justice. So reports of harassment and sexual misconduct have flooded in, and police vowed to take back the streets. And so one officer said, this behavior was happening within seconds. The threat was real. And now, here's a quote from what they said. They said, within 10 minutes, one of our officers was honked at. And just 30 seconds later, another was gestured at inappropriately. So what did they do? Let's go ahead and have the reveal here. What did they do? They put female officers in jogging outfits and waited for someone to say nice legs so that they could arrest them. British cops put jogging outfits on, went undercover. They actually did a nice undercover operation to put women in jogging outfits and go out and actually try and get men to honk at them or to say obscene things. And so this is the women here in their outfits. And
are those weighted vests?
I don't know if they're flashing vests so they can be seen. This is a guy that they interviewed, and I was trying to find a video of this, but all I could find was commentary on it. But listen to this. This is, how like in these big scenes where they're doing these big dramatic things, and then they have an interview with this perfect quote. And so it's like a big dramatic thing that they did in this little piece that they put together. And the quote literally was, within 10 minutes, one of our officers was honked at. Just 30 seconds later, another was gestured at inappropriately. Like, that's what that was their big finding. And so this guy says, men and people who are doing this, this is not a crime, but, they're being set up to do other crimes. And this is what it's revealing. And so that was their big crackdown on this. I got a little tweet here from the Free Speech Union. This is over in Britain. And it says, Britain is in the grip of a surge in serious crime. In the year to March 2025, shoplifting rose 20%, theft from the person climbed 15%, and robberies topped 78,000, with robberies of business premises up 50%. And Surrey police's answer, jog on, a countrywide sting in which female officers dressed as joggers run through public spaces, trailed by squad cars, ready to swoop in on anyone who catcalls, whistles, or makes sexually suggestive comments. These behaviors may not be criminal offenses in themselves, but they need to be addressed. That's what one spokesman said from this. Acts of this kind he added very darkly, they may lead to other behaviors. So the next time you see a female jogger, he added, just think, they could be a police officer with colleagues nearby ready to stop you.
Right, because that will correct behavior. That I don't know about that.
This is serious. You got to be kidding me. I cannot believe this.
What makes this a joke, in case anyone is not familiar with what the heck is happening in England, what is an absolute joke about this is in England, they have this thing called grooming gangs, which I'm not going to get into, where foreign communities have moved into England illegally on boats and that sort of thing, and given benefits and allowed to be in England, and they don't crack down on any sort of immigration. And then the police are so afraid of the immigrants, and they're so afraid of the Muslim communities because they don't want to rile them up, because they're literally just scared of the Muslims, but they're too PC to do anything about it, that they have allowed these Muslim communities to groom and sexually assault teenage women of all ages. And the British Labour politicians attempted to cover it up and didn't want to investigate it and didn't want to look into it. And so that's something that's real. And then crime, of course, is like through the roof and all that kind of stuff. And they don't want to actually solve any of the issues. They don't want to do the things that need to be done to keep the stuff from happening. And so the reason why this is a joke, because it's, catcalling women on the street is wrong. That's a wrong thing to do. Obviously, that's not something that women should have to deal with. Having somebody honk at them while they're jogging, or make other lewd comments at them or whatever. That's obviously wrong. And so it's not that this is like, it's not like this is.
We're not defending this behavior.
That's the problem. Is that in the UK, this is just par for the course. This is what they always do. They focus more on what they call non-crime hate incidents, where they focus on what people are saying online, and they focus on always
that's
again,
the priority.
It's going to sound racist, but it's always the white people that they focus on, because they're not afraid of the white populations. They focus on the British populations and the like tiny crimes or like the hate instances. They have something called non-crime hate instances that you can be arrested for. And it's not a crime. It's just the police are like, oh, well, you said something that's hurtful. And it's like, well, is it a crime? Well, no, it's not a crime. So we're not arresting you for a crime. We're charging you or arresting you for a non-crime hate incident. And that goes on your record. And it's it's so Orwellian. It's
absurd.
It's an absolutely absurd state. And they will not actually crack down on the individuals who are actually making the country unsafe and unlivable, which is almost entirely illegal migrants.
It's super sad, and they are swallowing a camel while straining out a gnat. That's what they're doing, 100%.
Exactly.
And the funny thing, though, is, and I 100% agree with you, Reese, catcalling and all that kind of stuff is, I do not support that. I think it's wrong.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it is not a crime. That's the truth of the matter. But I would say this. I would say, unless they make it a crime, which, they might, but I think this strategy will actually kind of work, honestly, because if they're trying to get guys to stop doing that, because I'm thinking about here in the States, we have those, in a lot of states here, we have those little cameras on top of the intersections, and it's like, oh, now they installed cameras on all the intersections, so I can't run these red lights anymore because I'm going to get a ticket in the mail, right? Until a decade later, when everybody found out that the cameras weren't linked to anything, they just stuck them up there in hopes that people would, and then they announced we're putting cameras on all the intersections in hopes that it would crack down. And it did. It worked for a while until everyone figured out what was going on. So if this story goes viral and everybody in the UK is thinking to themselves, maybe there is a SWAT team down the road, it might work.
I mean, the thing is, I don't think that people who are doing those terrible things are what do you call it?
They're not informed.
The gateway crime to that is not catcalling. I don't think the gateway
crime
to violent sexual assault is not catcalling.
It's typically stalking. Like, if somebody's going to catcall a woman, and they actually have bad intentions, generally they don't really want that woman to know that they're watching them.
Right.
That'd be my assumption.
And and Reese, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is really the disgusting irony of this, is that this is absolutely, it's ridiculous. So I saw here the crime survey for England and Wales found that there were 9.4 million recorded incidents of headline crimes, which includes fraud, theft, and violence in the year ending March 2025. And that's a 7% increase from the previous year. So, not a great trend.
You know what we need to do to counterbalance this, to counteract this? We need to put our funds into cracking down on the cat calls. Like, that's what we need to do.
Let's do it. I'm telling you, man.
This is the most important thing we can focus on.
I see the angle, though. I think it is important to try to stop bigger crimes before they happen, and so I understand it from that angle. And honestly, I have no idea what's going on in a man's mind when he does catcall. I have never been tempted to do that. I don't get it, but I think that maybe it's taking a little bit too far. But maybe guys should stop catcalling. But at the same time, though, this is a source issue. One of the problems that I have with policing in general, and not that I have problems with the police, I'm just saying there's a concept behind policing that I don't agree with, and that's you're going to get consequences for certain actions, and that never changes behavior. You get a speeding ticket one day, and next day you're still back out there speeding. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't have an actual effect. So what is it that we need to do in society where men don't want to catcall women? That's what we need to be doing. How can we focus on helping our men to be better men so that they don't have the desire to catcall a woman in the first place. That's what we need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
I agree.
The family unit, strengthen the family unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you really want to crack down on that, it's a different approach. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, it's a cultural, spiritual approach. But again, those kinds of discussions, which could definitely be had in England, as far as like England's culture. Again, it's so much of a laugh and so much a joke because England keeps importing in other cultures that completely disrespect women in every single regard, and then the left-leaning government wants to, and they like funded a fake documentary and stuff that they put out of like or it was a Netflix series. This was a Netflix series where they're like, we need men to understand, white men in the UK to understand how dangerous they are and how harmful they are for women. And so there was this Netflix series that was like the UK government was like pushing it and being like, everybody needs to watch this. It was based off of a true story. Well, the only problem is they race swapped and they made it to where it was a 13-year-old white English boy that was the one that ended up murdering a woman or murdering one of his classmates.
It wasn't even
in reality, it was a somebody from a migrant community that worked on it. And it just flies in the face of just like the native British people in the UK are like, the UK government keeps telling us that we're the problem and us men are dangerous and problematic, while they're importing in foreign men who think that women should be dressed in a trash bag head to toe and are harassing them on the street, and they're not doing anything about it. Instead, what did they tell the women there? They say, "Oh, just don't go to that area of town. Just don't walk down that street if you're getting harassed there." And it's like, what do you mean just don't walk down the street? Why don't you arrest the men who are doing the actual real harassment and stalking and following them on the street and stuff like that, to where the women now are like, well, I just can't go outside anymore. And it's not the native British that make it to where the women can't walk outside anymore. It's not.
You know what would actually help if we want to stick with this kind of concept? I don't know if you guys have seen this guy, and this was hilarious. This back in the day, good old YouTube days. This dude put on yoga pants and a wig, and he'd go out in public and like stretch and stuff for his jog, and guys would come by and catcall, and a couple guys actually got a little handsy with him, and then he just turned around to show that it's like a dude with a beard, and they got so mad, and it was hilarious. And he would
probably be more effective.
Even call them names after that, but that might actually work better if you actually had
that actually might work better. Yeah,
probably be a little more effective than the female police.
Oh my goodness!
Like scare them straight and let's scare them from ever doing that again.
Yeah. That might correct some behavior, because now you're driving down the street and you see some jogging pants. You might be like, oh, maybe I don't want to call that one. I think that would be more effective.